Stephen A. Smith's woke rant Wednesday morning on ESPN, it got me to thinking about how far the network has fallen. Before going fully woke last summer, ESPN had been toying around with the idea of going woke for, the past 10 years. They have The Undefeated, an ultra woke website dedicated to all things woke. They gave the Courage Award several years ago to Caitlyn Jenner, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, for having the courage to get a sex change. I'm not sure what is so courageous about that. Seems like a personal decision to me, but I guess ESPN considered the courage part was Bruce Jenner going through with the sex change so publicly. Yeah, it's real courageous to be paid millions of dollars to share your story. I don't call that courage. I call that exploitation. Then you had Jemele Hill, who was once queen of the wokers at ESPN. There are way too many examples of Jemele Hill practicing her wokeness to count. She's the ultimate race baiter. Every problem, according to Jemele Hill, stems from race. I'm not sure which problems that she was referring to. Maybe she was bullied as a child. I don't know. If that were the case, though, it likely had nothing to do with race and everything to do with her attitude, but I digress. Last summer, the NBA jumped fully aboard the ESPN woke train, drove that train straight off a cliff. The network aired specials about race in America, with talking heads preaching to us about how racist all of us are. You've got to remember, for my young audience out there, you've got to remember, ESPN used to be a sports network. Sports only. That was it. ESPN stands for Entertainment Sports Programming Network. The P in that acronym, it might stand for politics today, but that's never been the case in the 40-plus year history of the network. ESPN should also add a W in front of that acronym for woke. Last fall, Kirk Herbstreit made a complete fool of himself on national television. He was on ESPN's college football show one day during the week. I can't remember what the damn show's called. I haven't watched ESPN in so long, I've forgotten about most of their shows. But Kirk Herbstreit goes on the air, and he proceeds to start crying about the racial injustices in America and how white athletes should stand and support their fellow black players in this fight for equality. There's that word again. My favorite woke term, equality, the great myth. In the middle of his sobs and his tears, Kirk Herbstreit found a way to fight through the tears courageously and talk about the importance of social justice. Just like LeBron James, I don't think Kirk Herbstreit knows what social justice really is. Most of these rich television personalities, especially the ones on ESPN, I don't think these people really know what they're talking about. I believe they're being told what to say. We talked about this in the video yesterday. Jason Whitlock alleges that Stephen A. Smith, not only did he not write his own stories as a journalist, but he's also being told what to say by executives at ESPN. If that's true, if that's the case with the face of the network, Stephen A. Smith, then I've got to believe it would be true for guys like Kirk Herbstreit too. Because if he knew what social justice really was, I have a hard time believing that he would be really fighting for it. I've explained to you guys what social justice is many times. I'm not going to get into it again today. I don't have the time, and you can find plenty of my videos in the archives where I go in depth on social justice, or you can just Google it for yourself. So let's get back to ESPN's history of wokeness. Throughout the summer of 2020, and even during the NFL season, Max Kellerman was spouting off about how irresponsible it was for the NCAA and the NFL to be playing football in the middle of a pandemic. Now, mind you, Max Kellerman had no issue with the NBA restarting their season. No. We had to stand by our woke brethren. Max Kellerman used the excuse that it was okay for the NBA to play because they were in a bubble. The real reason Max Kellerman was okay with the NBA continuing on was because they had Black Lives Matter and other social justice messages all over the damn court. The court in Orlando last year in the bubble, It looked like a damn social justice billboard. It was a woker's wet dream. Now that brings us to the present, with Stephen A. Smith claiming on a regular basis that every time a white person gets an opportunity in sports, it's because of white privilege. Steve Nash, hired by the Brooklyn Nets, white privilege. Tim Tebow, getting a tryout in Jacksonville, eventually a contract, white privilege. Brad Stevens, promoted by the Celtics, white privilege. Vanilla ice cream, being the color white, white privilege. Ordering white rice at a restaurant, white privilege. I'm bringing all of this history of wokeness with ESPN to your attention for a reason. ESPN is struggling. Hell, ESPN has been struggling for the past several years. It seems like once a year, news breaks that ESPN is once again laying off hundreds of employees. Their ratings are disastrous. Last summer, they hit record lows. The NFL draft, what was that, about a month ago? One of the biggest events of the spring. Even though it airs on several channels nowadays, when you think of the NFL draft, or when most people think of the NFL draft, you automatically think to turn to ESPN. They've aired the draft for as long as I can remember. It's generally one of the biggest rating draws of the year for the network. And it was again this year. ESPN drew 6.5 million viewers for the draft. Not bad, right? When you dig a bit deeper though, you realize that that number's not so great. The 2020 NFL draft, watched by nearly 8 million people on ESPN. You got to remember, the 2020 NFL draft aired a month before the network dove headfirst into woke politics with reckless abandon. So in the matter of 12 months of ESPN deciding to be ultra woke, they drove away around 2.5 million people. Those people chose to watch the NFL draft on the NFL Network or online or whatever the case may be. The point is, they didn't watch it on ESPN. ESPN's not only struggling on television, their radio division is on life support. ESPN Radio is barely clinging to life. Their ratings on radio have declined by 53% over last year. ESPN used to be the go-to source for sports talk radio. Today, they're not even on the mainstream radar. If I asked you to name one show on morning or afternoon drive on ESPN Radio, could you do it? Could you name one? I couldn't. I used to listen to ESPN Radio on a daily basis. I can't tell you the last time I've tuned in. What happened with ESPN Radio? The same thing that happened on television. They went woke, especially last year. They used the excuse last year that sports were on hiatus, so there was nothing to talk about. Plus, there were more important things happening in the country, like the push for social justice and equality. So across the board, ESPN Radio went from talking about sports to woke politics. The results were disastrous. Golick and Wingo, canceled. They replaced them with Keyshawn Johnson, whose ratings have been abysmal. They parted ways with Dan Le Batard, which is a good thing in my opinion. Dan Le Batard was so woke that ESPN actually asked him to tone it down. You know that you have gone overboard the woke train when the wokest network on television asks you to tone down your wokeness. ESPN Radio is struggling to survive. Hell, ESPN on television is struggling to survive. Of the 3 networks that broadcast the NBA, ESPN usually pulls in the lowest ratings. SportsCenter used to be mainstream. Do you ever hear about SportsCenter anymore? The only press I see ESPN garner is when Stephen A. Smith goes on one of his woke tirades. But that's negative press. I said this a while back, and I'm going to say it again. Financially, ESPN is fine. I mean, they're owned by Disney. They've got money. But as far as cultural impact, mainstream impact is concerned, ESPN's in trouble. They are on life support. Over the next 10 years, we could see a day where ESPN's no longer around, at least in its current form. I know that seems crazy to say, but nothing is too big to fail. All right, time to let me know what you think. Do you guys watch ESPN anymore? My guess is most of you don't. I had a listener tell me the other day that he gets his sports news from me and several other YouTubers. Is that the case with everybody in my audience? Have you quit watching channels like ESPN or Fox Sports 1 altogether? Sound off in the comments below. Let me know. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.